Hello, dear students. This is RHS Prasad, lecturer in chemistry, VSM College, Ramachandrapur. Today, we are going to discuss about the decomposition techniques in analysis, part 7. In this topic, we are going to discuss about the solubility of organic compounds. In the previous classes, we have discussed about the solubility of inorganic compounds by using particularly acid decomposition, decomposition by fusion, and decomposition by sintering process. In this, I am going to discuss about the solubility of organic compounds. Generally, the solubility of organic compounds involves the formation of one layer, means if the compounds are miscible then they can form only one layer. If they are immiscible then they form two layers. So generally the aniline which can be soluble in 5% HCl, and this heterocyclic compound which is insoluble, and you know very well the DPA, that is diphenylamine, that is insoluble in 5% HCl, just for example. So the substituted amides, substituted like R2 dash amides of sufficiently high molecular weight to be water insoluble and are soluble in 5% HCl solution. Just examples these are: aldehydes and ketones are sufficiently acidic to react with aqueous alkali, but they are too weakly acidic to dissolve to any measurable extent in 5% NaOH solution. When two carbonyl groups are attached to the same carbon, two carbonyl groups are attached to same carbon, then the acidity increases sharply, so that they will be dissolved maybe in alkali. Esters with 5 or 6 carbon atoms that are almost completely soluble in water may be hydrolyzed by continued shaking with 5% NaOH solution. Why? Because they are almost completely soluble in water. Solubility in cold concentrated H2SO4. Of course, generally if unsaturation is there, I think you know very well about unsaturation. So carbon carbon double bond or carbon carbon triple bond are there. It is called as unsaturation. If it has unsaturation, then the solubility of those particular compounds, unsaturated carbon compounds, is there in H2SO4 solution. I think you know very well about sulfonation, right? So cold concentrated H2SO4 is used with neutral water insoluble compounds containing no elements other than carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. If the compound is unsaturated, it is readily sulfonated or possess a functional group containing oxygen. It will dissolve in cold concentrated H2SO4. So alkanes and cycloalkanes and their halogen derivatives do not undergo sulfonation and are insoluble in H2SO4. Why? Because if there is no unsaturation, then H2SO4 will not react with the alkanes or cycloalkanes. So that is the reason why they will not be dissolved in H2SO4 solution. The presence of two or more alkyl groups on the aromatic ring permits the compound to be sulfonated and is readily dissolved in H2SO4. Next, solubility in organic solvents. Generally, the solubility of organic compounds in organic solvents should be determined in order to plan for a variety of laboratory operations like organic reactions, for spectral analysis, for cleaning the glassware, and for extraction process, next for crystallization process or chromatographic process also. Any of these process, the compound must be dissolved in organic solvents. Next, polar and non-polar solvents. What is the difference and what is the nature of those solvents regarding the solubility of organic compounds? According to their dielectric constant, solvents are classified into polar and non-polar solvents. Generally, what is dielectric constant? Simple. It is the measure of the ability of the solvent. It is the measure of the ability of the solvent to separate ionic charges. So, if A and B are there in a uh, ionic compound, A cation and B anion are there, they are held together by strong ionic bonds. If you add any solvent, according to the dielectric constant of that particular solvent, the solvent can separate A plus ion and B minus ion. So, what is dielectric constant of the solvent? It is the measure of the ability of the solvent to separate ionic charges A plus and B minus. The ability of the, it depends on the ability of the particular solvent. The dielectric constant is related to the polarity of the solvent. To dissolve ionic compounds, a high dielectric constant is required, but it is not the only characteristic of an effective ion solvent. The more the dielectric constant, more is the polar solvent in nature. Is it clear? Yes. If the dielectric constant of the solvent is high, then it is the more polar solvent. I will give you example in next slide. Okay, right. Observe here. So, if the compound is hydrogen cyanide, its dielectric constant is 116. Formamide 111. Water, its dielectric constant is 80. Formic acid 58. Dimethyl sulfoxide 47.8. Acetonitrile 37.5. These are all dielectric constants of that particular solvent. NN dimethyl formamide, its value is 37. For methanol, its dielectric constant is 32.6. For ethanol, its value is 24.3. Acetone 20.7. Methyl chloride, its dielectric constant value is 9. For tetrahydrofuran, its dielectric constant is 7.6. For acetic acid, its dielectric constant is 6.2. For ethyl acetate, its dielectric constant is 6.0. For chloroform, its dielectric constant is 4.8. And for benzene, its dielectric constant is 2.3. Its value is very less when compared to all these solvents. So you can observe here water dielectric constant is 80 at the temperature 25 degrees Celsius. Next, very important topic in this decomposition techniques in analysis. It may be the last topic, that is about recrystallization. I think you know very well about recrystallization. Generally, recrystallization is useful for the purification of organic compound. I think in your first year MSc organic chemistry experiments, after preparation of organic compounds, you can able to purify them by dissolving the amorphous solid uh, in methyl alcohol or ethyl alcohol. So after that cooling, that particular solution, after that if you cool at very low temperature in ice bath, then you can observe after some time some crystals will be appeared in that particular solution. So that process is called as recrystallization process. So recrystallization process is the purification process. So recrystallization is a laboratory technique used to purify solids based on their different solubilities. Generally, a small amount of solvent is added to a flask containing an impure solid. The contents of the flask are heated until the solid dissolved. Next, the solution is cooled. Then a more pure solid is precipitated, leaving the impurities dissolved in the solvent. So vacuum filtration is used to isolate the crystals. The waste solution is dissolved. So you can observe here the recrystallization process. So this is the amorphous solid. So if you dissolve it in alcohol, if you heat it, then it will be dissolved completely, but after some time you can get the crystals, pure crystals. This is the amorphous solid. These are the pure crystals obtained after recrystallization process. After that you can separate it. Okay, separate the pure crystals. So that is called as recrystallization. If you wanted to get the example, recrystallization of phthalic acid, just weigh about 60 milligram of phthalic acid and add about half of the amount of water that is calculated for the purification of phthalic acid, and add drop by drop at the boiling point. Next, the solid is dissolved, cooled to room temperature and in an ice bath. Then you can observe the crystals of formation of crystals of phthalic acid. This is the example for recrystallization process. Okay, right. So today's assignment question: explain the process of recrystallization of organic compound. Thank you for your kind attention to the class.